Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the 95th Annual National Plant Board meeting. Very excited to have such a large group of people able to attend since we're doing it virtually this year. Hopefully the format of this meeting works well for everybody, or we can make this work well for everybody. We're doing afternoon sessions today through Thursday with our business meeting on Thursday afternoon also. We have a great slate of speakers lined up for this. Thank you to everybody who provided input and shared ideas on what might make some really good topics for the meeting. And thank you also to the Agenda Committee, which is our regional vice presidents and the national vice president, for putting together such a good meeting. I think the fact that we have this many people in attendance clearly indicates that they found the topics very worthwhile. So we have a slate of presentations this afternoon, myself and Osama and Customs and Border Protection, and then NASDA. And so with no further ado, I will get started on my presentation of the state of the National Plant Board. So hopefully I can click through all of these slides without too much problem. Well, the last 12 months have definitely been very interesting. This was kind of the second half of the COVID pandemic, and yet plant pests did not slow down. If anything, it seems like some of them sped up or caused us more work than normal. We definitely saw some unusual things in this last year. So some significant pest responses that the states were participating in included Ralstonia trace forwards, box tree moth traces, Phytophthora ramorum trace.
You can't lower that?
I don't know. Probably one of the more unusual ones was trace work that we collaborated on with many of our DNR and Game and Parks counterparts in the zebra mussel or mossballs trace work of the early spring. We continued to see unsolicited seeds from China that started hot and heavy in the spring and summer of 2020, but did continue into the fall. And we've had a small resurgence yet again this spring. And then a few of you states got involved with a potato wart trace for material coming out of Canada. So this just highlights a lot of some of the activities that the states work on, either with pests of concern at the state level or when we're working in cooperation with USDA on pests that are a federal program pest. We would say that all of these pull us away from what is our quote unquote normal activities, but it's because these pests are of concern to us, are not known to be established in our area, could be damaging to our industries. And so we start shifting resources and scrambling staff to respond to these types of situations as they come forward. One of the other big milestones that we dealt with this year was the federal deregulation of emerald ash borer. A number of states have been deregulating over the past several years. And after quite a bit of consultation between the states and USDA, USDA did finalize the deregulation. That announcement was made late fall, early winter of 2020, and then went into effect in January of 2021. Probably one of the biggest concerns that I've heard states reference during that time was, what are we going to do about firewood? Emerald ash borer is our de facto federal firewood quarantine. How are we going to deal with this going forward? And we'll talk about the firewood guidelines that came out here in just a little bit. It is to be noted that Minnesota has applied for a free stamp, or to be admitted to the free stamp program for emerald ash borer, and that is still pending. There's a few other states that have indicated that they may be interested in that, but that's the path that Minnesota has chosen to take. Overall, the deregulation seems to have gone relatively smoothly. We're still working out some kinks on how to do certification of certification of firewood facilities going forward, and appreciate the partnership with USDA on some of the trainings that have been provided and the offers of future trainings for state staff, I should specify. Our meetings went virtual. So really that started in 2020, but we really got good at it this last 12 months. All of our regional meetings in the spring of 2021 went virtual. We have participated in a number of virtual trainings with our staff. We had a virtual strategic alliance meeting, National Plant Board officers meeting, various committee meetings. So we've gotten really used to the talking heads on our screens as we continue to try and do the work of the National Plant Board to keep things rolling along. So hopefully this is the last virtual National Plant Board annual meeting that we will be having. I am very excited to be back in person and to see everybody's faces versus your images or your black screen with your name on it. While we do definitely get a lot of good and learn a lot of information on the virtual meetings, there really is no replacement for in-person meetings for much of the work we do and the relationship building that that offers. Now, going forward, do I think that in 6 or 9 months, we're just going to flip the switch and be back to in-person meetings like we did in 2019? No, I don't think we'll probably ever get back to that. I think we've learned some really good lessons on what works well or what can be accomplished virtually, and probably identified those areas where it's really important to be in person. And we'll probably see some sort of hybrid modeling of that going forward. But we still managed to be very successful and get a lot accomplished with our virtual meetings this year. I hope there's a couple of you that I have seen that have some Muppets on your walls. The virtual meetings do offer a little bit of a voyeuristic opportunity into your personal lives. So those of you that have had Muppets posted, I hope you appreciate the little Zoom picture. All right, so if we can't get out and do stuff in the field, what can we do? Well, we really have worked in the last 12 months on what I'm calling some organizational accomplishments for the National Plant Board, things that we have been working on to help make us a more streamlined, more efficient organization or association going forward. It's not sexy, it's not that interesting. People kind of try and avoid me when they hear that I'm calling about a committee and asking them to serve on it, but it's some things that are really going to serve the National Plant Board well moving forward. We developed the National Plant Board Handbook. That process started in July and we finished it up in December. This is going to serve as an institutional memory for the National Plant Board. So when we're all sitting around wondering, well, how did we do that before? What exactly is our process for this? This handbook is going to be that guiding document for us as we move forward. We will be utilizing that when we do onboarding of new officers, training of board members, even introducing new SPROs to our organization. We developed the National Plant Board newsletter. We're always looking at ways to be more efficient in our communication and looking for different opportunities to communicate with our membership. And so one of the things we developed this last year was the National Plant Board newsletter. There's been, I think, 3 or 4 issues. It comes out roughly quarterly. The response has been good. We've been tracking the metrics on that, not specifically who's looking at each article. Don't worry, we're not quite that big brother, but just looking at the number of clicks on the various articles to see what's interesting, what's not so much, and trying to tailor future newsletters to that. We also recognize that everybody participating in this meeting gets more emails on any given day than it's really possible to manage well. And so we are looking at the newsletter as an opportunity to provide updates without emailing out little bits of information all the time. So it's kind of turning into a place that you can go and you can look at past newsletter issues and get updates so that we're not inundating your inbox all the time. We shifted to having a second board of directors call every month to focus on special topics as needed. Our board of directors calls were getting very lengthy and we wanted to be respectful of people's times, but we also recognized that we just needed time to talk about things. So we went from having 1 board of directors call to 2 board of directors calls every month so that we could focus in depth on that second call each month on a specific topic. And these have run the gamut so far from the SANC, the Japanese beetle harmonization plan, our training efforts, spotted lanternfly and how to deal with that going forward. And those have been really well received and I think have helped improve communication among the board members. We focused quite a bit on member trainings. We sent 16 individuals or state employees to facilitator training last fall, and we have several of them that are going to be helping on the National Plant Board meeting this week. We also had quite a bit of participation from those trained facilitators in the regional meetings, and we'll be looking probably to utilize them as we go forward in other meetings. It really does help with agenda development and making sure that meetings are well run and kept on time and on task. So we're excited to have that group of people able to do that. We had another round of NCIIT training. This is the investigatory training that we worked with the CLEAR program to develop about 2 or 3 years ago. We had an in-person training in Texas. They weren't offering in-person training, so we did training. It occurred over 2 weeks. It had about 10 or 12 modules, about half of which were a live Zoom meeting and half of them were self-paced. And the feedback was very good. We'd still prefer to be in person for it, but it really went very well. And we ended up with about another 100 state employees that have now completed the NCI IT training. So overall, I think we're close to 200 inspectors that have gone through that training. And we continue to work on the training initiative. A large thank you to Brian Kuhn from Wisconsin for all the work that he has done on that with PDC staff to identify opportunities for trainings in Blackboard. We'll be rolling some of those out to the National Plant Board membership here before too long. And we continue to work with the with PPQ and the PDC on looking for additional training modules that we can put into Blackboard that will really increase the value of that training portal to the National Plant Board membership. So be watching for more information on that. And then we are looking to strengthen our relationship with the National Plant Diagnostic Network through an MOU that will better clarify our different roles and responsibilities as cooperating agencies working on plant pest issues. The draft of that MOU is complete, and I think we will be talking about it. I need to look it over one more time and make sure it's ready to be seen, but we will be discussing that at our business meeting on Thursday. Then we have those things that are works in progress. We are putting the finishing touches on the first phase of the National Plant Board Mentoring Program, and Gibbs has been spearheading this project. We really want to do a better job, a more deliberate job of onboarding new National Plant Board SPROs, helping them understand what we do and why we do it and how to participate. So this will be a combination of active training, of mentoring, of some passive trainings. It will be open not only to National Plant Board members, brand new ones, that'll be our target, but anybody will be able to use these resources to help them better understand the purpose of the National Plant Board. We're looking at some other member trainings. We want to make sure that this is an organization that gives back to our members, not just asking you to help out the greater good, but that we're providing trainings for everybody that are involved that they can also apply in their own organizational situations. And so a couple of the things that we're looking at going forward are leadership training for board of directors members, a little bit of a carrot to encourage people to consider serving on the board of directors. Ann Gibbs and I participated in an executive leadership program for regulators through the CLEAR program. It was an online program. It was 4 or 5 sessions, 4 or 5 afternoon sessions, and it was good. It was kind of an introductory class on executive leadership, but we're looking at sending board members to the in-person training once that starts up again, hopefully later this year or early next year. And then as new board members come on, we would continue to send them to that training. And then something that we've just recently started talking about, I'll be honest, the intent had been that this would be one of my big projects over the last 2 years, and we never quite got to it, but we're gonna try and kick it off now, is having a discussion on basic standards for inspectors for plant pests. Is there training that we can provide that will help ensure that inspection standards are being carried out similarly across states? Trainings that we can offer, possibly even a certification program being developed by the National Plant Board for plant pest inspectors. Voluntary, let me stress one more time, voluntary, and it would be voluntary. This would not be anything that would be required of anybody's staff, but something that might help augment existing training programs for some staffs or help more formalized training across the board. And then our website update, and some of you may be like, don't we always talk about website updates? But this is actually a fairly major website update. We're actually shifting to a new platform. We'll be reorganizing the data that is on, or the information that's available on our website. And probably most exciting for many of you who are obsessive compulsive out there, is that we will be organizing the basement in a way, pardon me, the National Plant Board members only subsite, so that we have better organizational opportunities with that. It won't read just like a list of activity or a list of documents available to you. And I believe Charles Elhart, who has been spearheading this Stephen Long has been the chair of that committee, along with the regional vice presidents who serve as our website committee, along with Charles Elhart. Will be talking about it later on this week. Additional program activities. So these aren't so much administrative as really getting into the nitty-gritty of what we do. These are just some highlights, and I apologize to anybody if your project is not listed on here. It does not mean it is not important. I had to keep it fairly narrowed down because Osama's coming up next, and I was told I can't eat into his time. We did an internal review of the Japanese beetle harmonization plan. This is a document that was created about 25 years ago by the National Plant Board. We did a review in the mid-2010s. I believe it was finished in 2016. That review looked at the content of the harmonization plan and really focused on updates to the treatments, streamlining language, clarifying some areas that were causing confusion, but it didn't ask the questions of the harmonization plan itself in terms of, is this still valid? Does it still make sense? Is there still a need for it? And so kind of mirroring what we partner with with PPQ on, with the Regulated Domestic Plant Pest Evaluation Committee, we took some of what we have learned from participating in that and looked internally at one of our own programs to ask some of those same questions. We had a great group of representatives across the National Plant Board states participate in this, and they'll be sharing information about their results during our business meeting on Thursday. As I referenced, the Regulated Domestic Plant Pest Evaluation Committee, we have started our next round of reviews looking at carnal bunt and black stem rust, and those are just getting kicked off. We had quite a bit of overlap in the staff involved with that, as we did with several trace forwards this spring and early summer, and so we delayed some of our timelines a little bit, but we are just getting underway with those two reviews. We have heard continually frustrations from states on brokering situations, discussions on or frustrations concerning how do we correctly regulate brokers? What are you doing? What's this state doing? What kind of paperwork should they be keeping? Does anybody have authority over a broker if they never actually have possession of the plant material? And a quick and dirty discussion with states is that the answer to many of those questions is kind of across the board, very dependent on how state law is written. But we have developed a broker regulation committee, and that's not a very nice name for it because we haven't quite finessed it to narrow it down to the specifics of what they're going to be looking at. But we're going to be trying to answer some questions on, are there some minimum standards for brokers that we can recommend that states could consider when they're updating their plant protection laws, that could provide guidance to states as they're working on interstate movement of nursery stock issues when it involves a broker, to improve that communication, to help streamline some of those situations. So when I say this one is just kicking off, I mean literally we put this into place about 4 weeks ago, and we've had one meeting on it. So, but we hope to have some information coming out probably early 2022 on that. There's a review going on of the PRAM federal program. National Plant Board worked in conjunction with PPQ to get this underway. It is well underway at this point. All states should have received all SPROs should have received an email survey or a SurveyMonkey type survey earlier this spring, and we had really great response on that. I believe somewhere in the 65% range of states submitted responses to that. And now about 20 to 25 states that are being selected to participate in a one-on-one phone survey with questions about the PRAM program. And all of this will be utilized to help determine where PPQ goes with the PRAM program. Phytophthora has been a very hot button issue for states for almost 15 years now. And it's one of those issues where we don't have a strong singular voice as the National Plant Board, because we have such a wide variety of perceptions of risk and interstate movement rights. And so the National Plant Board has correctly not taken a hard stance, because there isn't a single hard stance that represents all of our membership. But this review provides us an excellent opportunity to get our thoughts to PPQ through the use of a third-party review team. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to get some very good results out of this. And then it'll be up to the National Plant Board and PPQ to work together to figure out how determine what changes can be made and how we can best do that. Just so you understand, though, it's not just National Plant Board that is participating in the review. PPQ SPUDs and I believe program staff are also being interviewed so that they can get the full perspective of all the folks involved in the review. So if you get a call or an email from somebody saying, hey, we'd like you to participate in this review, I would strongly encourage you to do that. And then last fall, I referenced that we had a strategic alliance meeting. We did have a new initiative come forward from that, focusing on export certification. That group has been meeting since roughly December, early January, and has identified 4 topics to focus on. And we have been going through kind of the troubleshooting, the good and the bad and the ugly of those 4 topics, and are now working on the reports to come out for how we might improve all 4 of those areas. So we hope to have a report out early fall on that. SANC, very excited that the SANC program transitioned over from being a pilot program to being a full freestanding program as of January 2021. The steering committee and all of the lovely volunteers that served on that for the last 7, 8, 10 years, it's been a while. The steering committee has been dissolved, and SANC is now entirely led by the governing board. And SANC continues to work on future trainings and working on considering how to recruit new nurseries, looking at the value-added nature of the SANC program and how we might move it forward so that it continues to grow. Firewood guidelines, I referenced earlier with the Emerald Ash Borer program that one of the big sticking points for states was how do we deal with firewood. We did have a firewood working group that developed guidelines that were released in mid-2020, but one of the remaining projects to complete was the firewood guidelines website. So if you didn't want to read the very long Word document, you can go to this very user-friendly website. Pira Siegert and Ann Gibbs were very instrumental in developing this. It looks great. This is a screenshot of it, and you access it through the National Plant Board website. So if